After you.
Yeah.
All right. Wanted to do this in the control room because it is one of the few things that has been at this TV station longer than we have.
Control room. That's misnamed from the very beginning, isn't it?
The out of control room.
Exactly.
This is where we like to think we're in control room. Okay, so once again, make sure the cameras are in sync for editing purposes. We'll do this. I'll do this again. Got it. All right, we're going to get an inside look, behind the scenes look at a television station, one particular one, this one, KOAM TV, from the perspective of a guy who has been a part of and influenced and has had a front row seat on an awful lot of that history, most of that history. 47 years, Dale Switzer, you've been at KOAM TV. Does it feel like 47 years?
It feels at least that long. You remember we interviewed, or you interviewed, Lou Martin for the 40th anniversary of KOAM.
Lou Martin, for those who don't know, he was the first person to ever appear on TV, on this TV station.
Absolutely.
And among other things, he did IDs
Yeah.
at this TV station. I'm going to let you read this real quick.
All right. You're watching KOAM TV, Pittsburgh, Joplin.
Okay, do it again, but with feeling. No, I'm just kidding. That was good. You've had some practice at this.
As though I had done it before.
As though you've done it before. But a lot of people, most people probably don't know your name, maybe don't know your face.
I like it that way.
But they know that voice. They know that ID, and it's because they've been hearing it on this station all of their lives, and so have their parents and their grandparents.
Wait a minute.
Well, hey, I've been here almost as long as you. So if you're getting old, buddy, so am I. But it is a good long time. You came here to be an announcer, but that wasn't the only thing that brought you here. And back in 2015, you were inducted into the Missouri Southern Regional Media Hall of Fame. As part of that induction ceremony, there was a little introductory video piece that you had produced.
Yeah. I had to make it myself because nobody else knew the story.
Nobody else had your production skills. We're going to show this. Does it require any additional setup?
Well, I came from Manhattan, Kansas to be interviewed by Lou Martin. And that's the start of the story.
Roll the tape.
You could count on seeing that about once every newscast in the 1970s. I was living in Manhattan in '75 and got married that summer. The $130 a week I made in radio wasn't going to stretch far, so I sent a resume to a TV station in Kansas City and one located halfway between Pittsburgh and Joplin. I'm still waiting to hear back from Kansas City, but Lou returned my cover letter in 3 days with a note scrawled at the bottom. Dale, call me, Lou. A month after that, Catherine and I threw everything we owned in U-Haul's smallest trailer, hitched it to an 11-year-old Buick, and headed southeast. It took a whole day to get here, but I had a job waiting for me. Officially, I was an announcer-director. According to the job description, you might have to do almost anything. Direct Melody Matinee, process and edit film for the 6 o'clock news, and if somebody wanted the evening off, stick around to do sports, or weather, or anchor. I had one responsibility no one else had. With my resume, I included some music guide covers I drew for the Manhattan Rock Station, and that's what Lou was really looking for, someone who could draw cartoons and do simple lettering. Commercial sig slides and station breaks were drawn and painted on art cards back then. Lou also wanted someone to draw the TV guide ads. Half-toning a photo cost money, but ink was cheap. Looking through that old artwork reminds me that sweep stories haven't changed that much in 35 years. Only the faces are different now, and even some of them look vaguely familiar. By the late 70s, film was out, videotape was in, and we had a real news department. News anchoring and weathercasting were left to the pros. In 1981, I turned 30. We started a family, which after 5 years looked like this, and I touched my very first computer. Late at night, I studied programming. Catherine read hexadecimal notation to me while I typed in lines of code. It was geek romance. A few years later, the station bought a weather computer, and I started programming it to make simple animated cartoons. Time marched on, and by the mid-'80s, the station had changed networks and then changed hands. I was now a commercial producer. Four-staters probably saw more of my kids than they ever realized.
Give up the old brontosaurus for a new cougar.
Actually, the proper name is apatosaurus, meaning deceptive lizard.
Whatever. Hunker down in a handsome, hard-working Ford Ranger.
As computers improved, the projects got bigger, and the dinosaurs got more realistic. In 1993, I was named the station's first creative services director, just in time to do something special for KOAM's 40th anniversary. In those days, a frame of animation could take 4 minutes to render, 2 hours for every second. Things went a lot faster a decade later when I worked on our 50th anniversary. And then 10 years further down the road on the 60th. This time in high definition.
This is home!
It really should feel like home. Some of us at KOAM have worked together for a quarter of a century. We've been through changes of ownership, networks, station logos, seen video formats come and go. Great people, a nice award now and then, and so many different job credits. But really, I came here for the money. It was $10 more than I made in radio. Hard to pass up a deal like that.
And so now we know what brought you here. It was clearly the money.
It was.
$140
It was a
a week.
$10 raise.
Well, you know, who could turn down a lucrative offer like that?
Plus, Lou made sure I knew about the fried chicken. You could get a wing dinner for $1.
You could get 140 fried chicken dinners in a week at that
Absolutely,
salary,
if you
at that
like
rate.
wings all that much.
Okay, now you were brought here, as we mentioned in that piece, for basically to be an artist and to be an announcer. And over the course of a number of years, you had a lot of other roles. But they weren't all mentioned in that video piece. I made a little list here.
Uh-oh.
Creative Services Director is a title you've had for a number of years, but that, what is that? I mean, that's pretty broad, right?
Nebulous.
Nebulous, good word. But I've kind of listed a few others. This is not a comprehensive list by any means, okay? But here we go. Tell me when I've left something out. Okay, Creative Services Director, documentary producer, writer, editor, narrator, Foley artist, sketch artist, digital artist, animator, sculptor, sign painter, print ad designer, billboard designer, weather graphic software designer, photographer, still, slides, film, video, digital, control room technical director, graphics operator, audio operator, announcer, interviewer, field reporter, farm market reporter, weather forecaster, sports anchor, news anchor. Stay in your lane, Switzer. Commercial actor, music show host, children's show puppet master. And if this were, the credits were rolling at the end of the movie, we would also throw in gaffer and grip and best boy.
Because nobody knows what those things are.
No one knows what they are. But whatever they are,
Yeah,
I'm sure you've been those
we've had to
things.
do that,
What did
yes.
I leave out?
You might have made an asterisk there when you said news anchor. I anchored the 10 o'clock news exactly once.
And they never let you do it again.
But no one really saw me because it was New Year's Eve. And they thought, who's going to be sober? And I got the job. And
I wish we had that tape.
there was no tape.
Well, there was some tape. And I was going to show this later, but I'm going to show it now because, yes, we do not have news anchor tape. We do not have, I don't think of you really field reporting or doing interview. But you know what we have?
I'm afraid I do.
Tell me, what do you think we have?
You've got me doing the weather.
A little
I
bit of you
think.
doing the
Yeah.
weather. Yeah, we're going to show some of that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I knew that Lou Martin was going to be off gallivanting with his friends and whatnot this afternoon, and I'd have to do this. And I was hoping we would have some good weather to talk about today. I like to be associated with good weather. Well, it isn't going to be bad over most of it.
Have you seen this tape of you doing the weather?
Yes.
Yes.
I've seen it over the years. It surfaces, and then I try to hide it and tried to erase the tape one time, but I'm wearing my sick outfit. I have a turtleneck sweater.
I think turtlenecks are way underrated, don't you?
Well, they're perfect for when you're not feeling well.
So this was,
I was called out of the sick bed to come
that's
out
your
here,
excuse.
and
That's what you're going with.
If you listen to me, I sound a little bit like I do now, and it's just age now. But then I had a terrible cold. I'd taken some contact cold medicine, and Lou Martin couldn't do the weather, so
That's
I
your
got called
story,
in.
and you're sticking to it.
I'm afraid that's it.
Isn't it awful? 47 years, you've done all these amazing things for the station, production, control room, and elsewhere, and we're pulling up this little clip of you doing the weather.
It was a sorry, sad.
That was probably in 1970 something?
This is 78, 79. That sounds about right.
Okay. That would have been before my time, but not much. I
Yeah.
came here in 1980. Now, we mentioned in that video clip that you were also brought here not just to do the weather, although you were outstanding at that, and not just to be an announcer, and you have the perfect voice, cold or otherwise, you have an announcer's voice. You probably had this since what, you were 12?
It developed kind of early.
Okay. I'm curious to know, with all these skills that you have and have had, why television? Was it because of the voice? I mean, you could have done a lot of things. You could have been.
I was in radio for a while. I mean, this was not my first job.
Couldn't have been very long, because you were what, 22 when you came here?
I was 23. I was about to turn 24.
You were an old timer then.
Yeah, and I was just married, so I needed that extra 10 a week. And now I started out at a student radio station at KU, and then that's why I left KU is a story unto itself. It was campus uproar at the time. It was Kent State had happened, and
Yeah.
it was they burned the student union.
Oh my
and
goodness.
Thought this is too exciting. I need to go to some place that has.
There are people out there who don't have our age and history and have no idea what you're referring to with Kent State.
Yeah.
But of course, that would have been student uprising, outrage over the Vietnam War.
Right.
Way back when. You were an artist, still are an artist.
There's a picture that's flashing behind us, maybe, of a young couple who are betrothed, and the gal hired me to do a piece of artwork for their announcement, and that is what made me a professional artist, because I got $10.
$10.
You bet.
Wow. You know what? That thing is probably priceless now. If somebody could dig it up, it'd be like finding an
Exactly
original
priceless,
by
yes.
some Renaissance artist. But in the early days, as an artist, a lot of this was sketch art, and again, this is referred to briefly in that clip. But you would do print ads that would appear in the newspapers, like the Joplin Globe and the Pittsburgh Morning Sun, and also in TV Guide.
Exactly. That was basically what they really needed, was somebody to do the TV Guide ads. And there will be a picture of a little leprechaun clicking his heels. They needed somebody to do a cartoon that livened up a slideshow.
But I want to stick with TV Guide for just a moment. First of all, a lot of people don't know what TV Guide is, probably.
Exactly. Yes.
But it was, at one time, it was like the biggest selling magazine in the country back when there were such things as magazines. And it would tell people basically what was coming on their TV station, would come out once a week. And I know that as an employee in the newsroom, when we would get a Dale Switzer drawn ad appearing in the regional TV Guide, that was a big deal. Why were they sketched ads and not photographs?
Well, in those days, if you wanted a picture, it had to be half-toned. And we would have to take the photograph into town into Pittsburgh to Pitcraft, and they would run it through the process of getting an 85-line screen made, and then we would have to cut that out and paste it on what they called a mechanical, which was sized with the lettering on it, cut to size, and then it would have to be run back out to Pitcraft, and they would
How do you remember this stuff?
Did a lot of it.
This would have been a more expensive process doing it with photos than
It cost $15
sketch.
to make
Okay, well
one of
they had to
those.
come up with 140 to pay you every
Exactly.
week, so they had to trim
Might
corners
as well
where they
get their
could.
money's worth.
Right. Well, and it wasn't just the print ads. You were designing billboards,
Yeah.
some award-winning billboards.
We did win a prize one year. I only did like 3 billboards, and we won a silver medal from the Broadcast Design Association.
When I first came to Joplin, my first ever exposure to Joplin, I came to town to interview with a different TV station for a job offer I didn't take. But I decided to check out KOAM TV, and the reason why, Dale, was because I saw billboard, a double-sided billboard. I wonder now if you had a part in designing this. I'm certain you did. On one side, it had a microwave van.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. And it said, I think News 7, live, first live.
Yeah.
And on the other side was a helicopter promoting Sky 7.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know at the time that the helicopter at the TV station in 1980 was owned, operated, flown by a guy with his crop dusting
Yeah, we were a
company.
sideline.
You were, well, yeah, a sideline, barely, because this guy, he would come to the TV station like maybe once a month. He would take us up if we would be shooting a story, and we had strict orders that kept that camera rolling the whole time we're up, because every bit of video we shot at some point was going to be edited into a story. So it appeared that we were taking this helicopter up every day. But the point is, this billboard was quite a selling point, not only, I think, for the public. Wow, they have live microwave capabilities, and they have a helicopter. This is small market TV, and this is 1980. It convinced me to come here. So that was, maybe one mistake. But
We had made inroads in just a few years. We did not have even videotape really until about 78 to do electronic news gathering. We did a little bit in 75. We had one reporter, Jerry Waltrip, who had a little Akai recorder. Otherwise, everything was on film.
And you were a film reporter. Oh, well, you shot film.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
people
I did reporting.
And you did reporting too. You did an interview. What was your most famous interview subject?
My only interview subject, start at the top, Vincent Price. I interviewed for about 15 minutes, because that's when the film ran out. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be interviewing the famous Dale Switzer for even longer than that.
What time is it now?
We're going to go more than 15 minutes. But people might not appreciate this age of digital, and prior to that, videotape. When you're shooting on film, it was a process, so to speak, in that you had to actually process the film.
We had to load the film, and when you loaded it, you had 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
3 minutes worth of film. That was it. And you tried to edit in your head. Okay, I'll have 5 seconds of this, and then the next thing, and do it in order, because you didn't want to have to get back to the station and then splice it.
Right.
The splices broke.
Well, splicing was physically cutting the tape with a razor blade and taping it together. Not the tape, excuse me, the film.
Film cement.
Film cement.
Yeah,
Is that what it was?
Glue.
So you're in the process thinking, okay, this is going to be shot 1, this is 2, 3, and you're trying to shoot them in order, make them not too long and not too short.
You
make
count
it,
1,
tell the story.
2, 3, 4, and yeah.
And before you could even get to the editing point, you had to develop the film.
Quite
Right?
often, stories did not get on the air because the film chain broke, and we lost everything, and so we had no film that night.
Well, I remember hearing stories from some of the old timers, and I mean even older timer than us, where they would rush back with the film, trying to get it processed in time, and then they would have to quickly dry it,
Yeah.
like with a hair dryer or a fan or something, because you know you're racing the clock.
We had an actual film dryer by the time I got here.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Oh, well, high tech then.
Yeah.
But and the result would sometimes be there'd be little water spots
There
on the
were
film.
water spots anyway. They went through a formaldehyde bath, and that was supposed to make it dry quickly and spot-free. And it did a pretty good job. Of course, you were also sucking in formaldehyde fumes while working in the darkroom.
That explains so much.
It does.
But people also were watching on pretty low resolution, primarily very early days, black and white TVs. So what are a few water
we
spots?
were always cautioned, yes, people have color TVs. Almost everybody has a color TV. If they have a second set, it's a black and white TV. If it's a third set, it most certainly is a black and white
Well, I can
TV.
tell you this young 22-year-old reporter coming here had his black and white TV that he had in his dorm room. And it picked up all of 3 TV stations, and not very well at that. But when I talk about the old timers, the really old timers, you and I, we started here at a time when we were fortunate enough to have known people that had been working at the TV station since it went on the air in 1953, December 13th of 1953. In fact, some who had been at the TV station before there was a TV station, right? Like Lou Martin we mentioned.
Yeah.
He worked at KOAM radio before there was a TV station.
1940, yeah.
1940. And some of the others who worked in other departments had been at the TV station since it went on the air, or again, before. People came to know you because of your connection to those people, and then eventually your longevity here as kind of the station historian. Still do. I mean, I tell people that you are the kind of walking encyclopedia of KOAM TV, but then it occurs to me a lot of people have no idea what an encyclopedia is. So you are the walking Google, the walking Alexa Siri. And some days people are going to be looking at this, perhaps they will dig this up years later and stumble across
What
it
are
and have
they
no idea
talking
what
about?
those are
No.
even. But there are some of us who've been here not as long as you, but almost as long as you. The difference is you actually remember things.
I've lost the index, but I do
You've lost the
remember
index.
things
It's,
themselves.
the index is between your
The
ears.
retrieval system is a little funky from time to time.
So, and over the years, we mentioned that again in that tape you put together. I was fortunate to get to have at least a minor participation in that 40th anniversary thing that would have been, of course, in 1993.
Minor participation. He was the star of the show
no.
with Wendy.
With Wendy. Well, I think we're going to show a little bit of that. Okay, so this is Wendy Brockman. She was a co-anchor.
And something remarkable was taking place in what had been a farmer's
We
field.
hosted this, sort of emceed this, from inside a museum in Galena, Kansas. Okay, so you remember why we were at this museum?
Well, they had an exhibit of our old TV cameras or something,
Yeah.
I think.
They had the first television color camera
Right.
in this area. It was on display there. I don't know where it is now. Maybe it's still in Galena.
When I came here, I guess we were still using it, actually, because it would have been the camera that pointed at the radar.
At the radar. Okay, let's talk about the radar. Because this is a fascinating story, I think. I don't know if it's true, but the story is that supposedly this TV station, KOAM TV, was the very first in the country to use live weather radar. What do you know about that?
It was among the very first.
Among the
actually.
first.
Yeah. It
So-
was, and I think it was maybe 57, 58. And it was an old radar that had been in the B-52 or something. And
That's what I heard. It was like a
Yeah.
World War II era radar of a plane, a bomber, that they put on the roof of this building, turned upside down, and then they had a camera, I guess that first color camera that was pointed permanently at that thing.
Yep.
And it was small, right? I mean, this image would have been, maybe 6 inches across or less.
Yeah, about like that.
Okay, and it took some interpretation, but you could kind of see storms moving in and that sort of thing.
That was all. There was nothing to indicate that there was a town there. The person who was doing the describing they used a little pointer that was a cardboard triangle, and they would point out where things were, and they just had to know where the towns were, that the storms were approaching.
The weather forecasting technology advanced a bit, not a lot before you were giving the weather in the 1970s, but a bit.
As a matter of fact, I had to make the maps that went into the colorizer. That it was the same radar that they were using the imagery for, and I had to make the 30-mile and 60-mile and 90-mile ranges. So I was in the back with aeronautical maps and atlases and.
I'm thinking the very first time I did anything live on this TV station, it was also doing weather.
Yeah.
I think probably on the noon news. And I remember the maps that we were using at that time. Of course, we would get images from network that were out of date. You could play those on tape. But we also had this image of the four-state area and of the nation that was on magnetic board.
Yeah.
And you remember how we put graphics on those things?
Magnets, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there was like
and
little.
a little bit of artistry with a magic marker.
True. I mean, that even predates those with the grease pencil.
Right.
But yeah, with the magnetic boards, there were like little cutouts of the sun or of a rain cloud. I remember back in the 1980s, meteorologist Bob O'Brien, who, when he was talking about the sun today, he would point to the sun and then he'd take that magnet off and he'd toss it out and said, "But clouds are moving in tomorrow," and he'd throw the clouds on there. That was high tech. That was the tech.
It was
at the time.
entertaining.
Yeah.
And that was part of your job to be, and Bob was good at it.
He was good. He also wore a different flower in his lapel.
Yeah.
He was.
And I made a cartoon of Bob and a county agent, I think, and they gave away zinnia seeds, and it was,
Really?
It was a trademark of his. So.
Well, you talk about the cartoon. We'll touch on that a little bit. Your artistry skills were put to use for lots and lots of employees as they left over the years, as you would make caricatures.
They were leaving, I believe, just to get those drawings. I'm pretty sure.
Well, do you remember your first caricature?
The first one for somebody who was leaving may have been one of those Karen Adams.
Karen Adams.
Yeah.
Karen Adams, well, she was the news director when I started here. Her title was news director. There was director of news services, who was Don Blythe, who was her supervisor. But Karen ran the day-to-day news operation. She was all of 20-something, but she was the news director. She was noon co-anchor. She was the assignments editor. At the end of the day, all of us reporters would receive a little envelope with the next day's assignments, and she would have all the news releases and all of the past stories on that topic and all of, a bunch of newspaper cutouts for, the 2 or 3 stories you'd be doing the next day, and she expected you to come in and know your subject before the day started.
She was a stern taskmaster.
She was a taskmaster, but she was also our best reporter.
Oh, yes.
So, when there was a story that was really big, particularly if you needed a live presence, her picture's popping up right now. Karen Adams is the one who would go out.
The second time she left. She merited so she left and came back, and then she got the cartoon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. You have to work here twice sometimes to get the caricature.
Yes.
See,
you have to rate.
I made the mistake of not retiring before you because I might not get a caricature. Although
we've got a stockpile of
do
drawings
you?
of you.
Okay.
Some
okay.
of them are flashing up on the screen now.
Some of those others, I see Bill Erickson and I see John Gallows. All right, now a lot of people maybe don't remember. The two anchors who were here when I started, I've seen their caricatures on that reel. Larry Wheeler and Carol Lambert. Think of all the people who've come through this TV station in the 47 years you've been here.
I did a going away card for Brian Williams also.
For Brian Williams.
Yeah.
Brian was here in the early 1980s for about a year.
That's what he says. He admits to being. The only reason I know
I
just
remember
about
Brian.
when he was here was my son had a way of saying his name.
What was that?
Brian Williams, and that's how I could always remember who that young man was.
So later he goes on to network television and you watch him, Brian Williams.
Exactly.
That's impressive. The technology evolved over the years in a lot of ways. Not only with weather graphics, but in the way we gathered the news and in the way you would do your artwork. So tell me about some of the changes.
Well, in '83, I think it was, we got a graphics computer. And we knew the computers were coming. Every home computer had its own spokesperson. Alan Alda was the spokesman for Atari. And that turned out to be the one that I got for my home. And then
The star of MASH is pushing it. It's got to be good, right?
Bill Cosby's TI just didn't take off well. But,
We're not even going to go into that.
but we had a graphics computer, and we had to learn to program it, and it came with a tablet. You could draw pictures with it, and we got a lot of mileage out of that.
It's remarkable to me that a guy who, with your artistic talents, is a sketch artist, and I mentioned sculptor. I remember you making little rubber puppets that looked exactly like Orson Welles, for example.
Orson Welles up there.
Right, and others that we use in commercials. But then all that could then translate to digital artistry. I mean, it seems to me that yes, it requires an eye, but it's also a completely different set of skills. But you mastered them both.
I don't know about mastering, but my
mastering.
poor patient wife, wondering why the kitchen sink didn't drain all that well, and it was all the plaster that was down there.
from making the puppets.
Making the puppets. It was just one promotion, Treasure of the Seven Seas, and I think I made Gregory Peck as Captain Ahab, Orson Welles, who was doing wine commercials at the time and was a familiar figure.
Oh yeah.
And
no wine before it's
Creature
time.
from the Black Lagoon. Poor Jill Nelson, unsung hero of our promotions, was carried off by the creature from the Black Lagoon.
I think that's in one of the caricatures.
Yes,
Jill
yes.
with the
Had to
creature.
remind her of that when she, her 40th
We probably don't have any
anniversary.
video of those puppets, do you think?
We don't.
We don't.
What I have is what's up there. It's Orson.
Okay. They were remarkable, and I don't know how you did it, but they were exactly lifelike, and the expressions, the facial muscles could all appear to move because with this rubber that.
It's
do that.
very movable. It also eventually melts. It returns to its liquid form. And that's why we have none of those. I did a whole series of, I did Walter Cronkite puppet, David Brinkley, Carl Sagan, and
You channel a lot of Carl Sagan, by the way.
pretty good Carl Sagan.
That's really good.
And no one remembers all that well.
Well,
but
some people do, though. And the turtleneck kind of fit with him too, by the way.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
But those puppets came in very handy because my son had a bedtime routine. I had the puppets up on top of a refrigerator, and when it was time to go to bed, I would get the puppets down, and they would all say goodnight to him, and he would say goodnight to them. And
Before they
off he
melted
went.
away and naturally recycled back into the earth. After that 40th anniversary piece, we worked together on a 50th anniversary piece. And I don't remember exactly the genesis of this, Dale. Maybe you can remind me. Did it start as a documentary and then become a news series, or did it start as a news series and become documentary? It was
You don't remember planning this out. It was a scheme.
okay. So
Yeah,
remind me.
we did it in
Remind
4
me.
parts, I guess.
I think
and
it was 5.
it could have been. It was just a way of dividing the task up, so that we could work on all of them at the same time, and then they would all meet in the middle.
So there was a part that looked at the history of local news and weather, and then the entertainment shows, which we haven't even touched on yet, like Melody Matinee and Fun Club for Kids, and it became a documentary. Getting to the entertainment shows. Years later, in 2020, Melody Matinee, the long-running live local musical show that aired from this studio next door and through this control room, was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And there was going to be a ceremony, but there couldn't be one because COVID. There was a pandemic and there couldn't be a public ceremony. And so instead, you were going to put together, I think, like a little few
2.5 minutes.
2.5 minute piece. And we thought, well, you know what? It deserves more. And it became
I
something
wondered,
else.
do we have enough stuff to really do a real show? And so I started tinkering with it, what we had, and got it up to 2.5 minutes, and well, let's see what happens.
It eventually became a full-fledged half-hour documentary.
Of course, in television terms, that means 22.5 minutes.
Right, because there are commercial breaks. Unlike this, there are commercial breaks.
Where we just drone on and on.
It was a fascinating documentary, and it's aired a number of times on KOAM TV and on Fox 14.
There's a half hour to fill. Jill puts her right in
But
there.
you know what? We get responses. People love it, and we're going to put a link. I think to this video, we'll put a link where people can watch that. The other entertainment.
And Dowe is the star of that also.
I was a participant. In that. We
remember how
we
we
worked
did
on
that?
this together.
You know, I would feed you the lines, and you would cut them in the audio booth.
Bit by bit.
Yes.
That was little piece by piece. Yes, I do. Unlike this, where we, as you say, drone on and on. Yeah, that was laborious work. But you did the editing, you did the producing, and on that show.
And you did all the retakes when I said, you know what I had you say? It turns out not to be the truth. But here is what I discovered.
That's true. I had forgotten that. Yeah, that's not quite right. But
then, one day,
you're a meticulous researcher, and we wanted to make sure everything was exactly right.
everyone was so conscientious about me getting COVID. They banned me from this. This man actually came in one day when I was sitting over there at my desk, said, "Leave."
That's true.
And he
Yeah, I
ordered
did.
me out.
I did.
and
Well, you were
couldn't
too.
come back.
You were too valuable to lose to COVID. I, on the other hand,
Front lines.
TV news,
Yeah.
put them out there. But yeah, we didn't want anybody out here who didn't need to be. But you kept working from home.
Took my computer home with me and put it together.
Another long-running entertainment show here. By long-running, I mean from pretty much the beginning of this TV station up until 1985 was Fun Club.
Yeah.
That was the kids' program.
You still run into people whose memory is of being on Fun Club.
Yeah. Well, and it had puppets.
I made Gabby Gus.
You made Gabby Gus.
I made Gabby Gus because
that was
he
the
had-
mule.
No,
Oh,
Gabby
that
Gus was the old timer.
Oh, you must have been the voice as well.
Well, I did have to do it that one time.
Did you?
It's a
Okay. Well, I said on the credits here, children's show Puppet Master.
puppet master.
So that was one of them. People remember that show, as you say, because they were on it, and we would get these requests from lots of people over the course of decades saying, do you happen to have a copy of the episode from 1969 or 79 or 82 when I was on it, or my sister was on it, or my kid was on it? And the answer was always the same.
Yeah. No, we don't have that. We have some stuff that we've saved over the years. We have no way to play it now. So.
Right, right. Well, and most of it wasn't saved.
No.
Because, first of all, a lot of those early entertainment programs were live. Certainly that was true with Melody Matinee. But even the things that were recorded.
Fun Club was recorded.
It was recorded, but it was on
2-inch tape.
2-inch videotape, 2-inch wide. Is what
Cost
that means.
my salary for a week.
Right,
for
and
each-
so they were erased.
Yeah.
They
and
were
recorded
reused.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we didn't have it. But then you kind of stumbled onto a gold mine. And this is what developed into a series of news reports called The Lost Reels. And this is one of my favorite news reports, I think, and for a lot of reasons, sentimental reasons, but also I think it's really interesting. Tell me about how this came to be, The Lost Reels.
I think it was Vance Lewis who told me he got wind from somebody that there was an offering on eBay, and he said, "Is this something we want to look into?" And I read what it was, and I said yes immediately. And as a matter of fact, I think I made the bid and bought it, so they're mine.
So you have to explain what it is you're bidding on here.
These are reels of movie film, and I thought, this can't be what they're saying it is of Melody Matinee and the KOAM News, among other things. The person who was offering it had no way of viewing it. He would just hold the film up to the light and see faces, but the reels had some information on the outside.
But again, this is like old home movie film.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get this film, you load it into the projector, and what splashes onto the screen?
It was unbelievable because we had film of Melody Matinee performances, film of Fun Club, film of newscasters reading the news, and it's beautiful stuff.
It was in color.
It was in color.
And it dated back to the 1950s and 60s.
Yeah, we had, so it would have been the 5-year anniversary of KOAM, and the Fun Club and Melody Matinee would have been the 10th anniversary of KOAM being on the air.
Again, KOAM went on in 53, so
53.
you're talking about 58 and then in 63.
Yeah.
Yeah. These were films that were shot behind the scenes by an engineer, Jack Lawrence.
Yes, but he put the camera on a tripod, and he had a bank of movie lights, blazing hot movie lights, and so the film looks absolutely first rate.
It was great to find this. It was a pure, lucky circumstance almost that it existed, number one, and that it ended up in your hands, somebody who could appreciate, really what this meant to so many
And I owned
people.
a movie projector.
And you owned a movie projector. You dusted it off and showed it. So made this into a 5-part series, and we'll provide a link for people to check this out, because I think they should if they can, and maybe watch it in order. But first part explains the discovery of the film, and then there's a separate part that looks back at the history of TV news at this station, and I think there's another part on the entertainment shows, Melody Matinee and Fun Club.
We can milk something like nobody's business.
It wasn't that. It was it was a gold mine that just kept on giving.
Yeah.
And people, I think, really responded to it favorably because it brought back memories for a lot of people, or introduced them maybe to some history that they were not aware of to begin with. You remember we put some clips from that. We put it on a laptop, and I took it around.
That was great.
I showed it to people who had worked at the TV station years ago, or they were the relatives of someone we had lost.
Jack Lawrence's daughter.
Jack Lawrence's daughter, Jackie. I showed some of the film to her, Dale, I don't know if you remember this response, but I showed her some clips from the Fun Club.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember what appeared, unbeknownst to us, what she saw on that film?
She was on it.
She was on it.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah, that's me and my sister.
You?
Uh-huh. And he's on my sister, uh-huh.
That is a little girl and her little sister.
Mm-hmm.
She had no memory of ever having appeared on Fun Club. But it was an emotional moment for her to see that. And it made us aware that when Jack Lawrence was shooting these films, he wasn't just documenting the history of a TV station. He was documenting the history of a family.
Yeah. And in fact, a lot of the film that he took was of Christmas dinner out here, when this was a mom and pop operation in so many ways. The families would gather, the kids were...
Christmas dinner, year after year after year in the studio. People would dress up, you know, wear suit and tie.
All wearing suits and ties.
Yeah, well, not all. Some of them were wearing pearls and dresses.
Well.
Generally, as I recall, men for the former and women for the latter.
Tom Freeman.
Well, you never knew with Tom.
Yeah.
But as I showed those Christmas dinners to so many people, and to Tom's widow among them, and to Joanna, and to Virgil Glenn, who had been on Melody Matinee for years as a musician, and showed them to Merle Allen, who was an anchor here in the 1960s. Over and over and over, I kept hearing a variation of the same phrase. Remember what that was?
I'm not thinking of it.
It was a family.
Yeah.
Well, we were just one big family.
It was more than just working at a station. So yes, it was a family thing.
They were family.
It was a family. You know, I still hear that, but I think, I don't know, I feel it. I mean, do you feel it? 47 years here?
Yeah, it's a dysfunctional family at
Well,
times.
sure. Sometimes it's dysfunctional, like most families. Some are estranged, but for the most part,
we don't talk about Bruno.
That's another reference that's going to be dated someday when somebody looks back at this.
That'll
never be.
forever.
Okay, Encanto will always be around. Okay, but yeah, it's a family, and you've been, you know, kind of evolving into the patriarch of the family, I guess, over the course of 47 years, and it's tough that, you know, you're not really leaving the family, but you're going to be, you know, you're not going to be in the building anymore. What, are you going to miss it?
Well, you know, I had that practice during COVID, because I was
true.
not allowed back in the building for
That's
a while,
true.
and I may not be allowed back in the building after.
Well, it depends. If you agree to come in and make caricatures, then I think we'll definitely allow you in. So, as this video drops, we're making a transition into a new year, 2023. Again, and you're not going to be here for the 70th anniversary, which would be in December of 2023, because you're going to be comfortably retired.
The onus is off me on this one.
So what are your retirement plans? What are your post TV? You know, there is life after TV.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
I do a little tinkering on YouTube videos, and I have a couple of personal websites that have I've been neglecting lately, but get back into that.
So tell me about those personal websites.
I do family history, sort of family history. It's about the area of Kansas that I come from. It's called lovewellhistory.com. There is a state park up there, Lovewell. that was created in the middle 50s, and it was named for a Kansas pioneer, Thomas Lovewell, who created a little town, gave it his name. So the town of Lovewell, which doesn't exist anymore.
I assumed he gave it his name because it would have been quite a coincidence if Lovewell had discovered the town of Lovewell,
Yeah.
and it was already named that. Yeah.
That would have been. But he also named the streets after his kids.
So there's like a John Street and a Bob Street. And
There was a Mary.
a Mary,
Yeah.
really? Oh, that's amazing. So people are going to be checking that out.
It's a fairly famous name in American history. There was a militia captain, Captain John Lovewell, who was his bunch of Rangers were massacred.
Oh.
In Maine, there's a little place called Lovewell Pond, and this was a famous skirmish that happened in early 1724 or 25, I think.
Well, the lights went out. That's okay. We're going to go on. We'll just go on because this is supposed to be a behind-the-scenes look at television.
Darkness falls.
It's a behind-the-sce look at television,
old
and
guys.
sometimes stuff happens. The light is fading on a career or two. So I'm going to check out that website. Other people will. Now, I said that this is beginning of a new year and a new chapter in your life. And so I brought something. First of all, do you remember when people used to smoke in this newsroom?
Yeah.
In this control room? I mean, it used to be full of smoke because
There were a couple of ladies one day who lit up simultaneously, and we almost had a halon purge. We were 30 seconds away from being extinguished.
Oh, really? The newsroom, it used to be so full of smoke. Obviously, times changed, and they would ban smoking, and we got the lights back on in the building. I think they've always banned alcohol in the control room. I'm not sure. No? No.
It used to be mandatory.
Was it? That's how you get through a live broadcast.
Everybody, every head of a department had Kentucky bourbon in his file cabinet.
Are you really?
I am not lying.
It didn't necessarily make the broadcast better, but it made you think it was better.
And when we had those Christmas parties, we had punch.
Oh, and there was some punch in the punch?
We had eggnog.
Okay.
And I've been a little bit tipsy running Chiron for the 6 o'clock news.
Well, I have a confession. This is alcohol-free. But it is champagne.
Well, the bubbles get to you.
There are bubbles. It's just recently opened. It's chilled because I've kept it down here on ice because I think a toast is in order of some sort, right?
Oh, sure. Why not?
Okay. So to old acquaintance, to fond memories, and to the expectation of a bright future.
New times.
To new times, and also to the guy who we call the wizard, who's behind the scenes for so much of all of that and making it all better, and will continue to do so. That would be you, sir, Dale Switzer.
Thanks for pulling me out into the light.
Cheers.
Briefly.
Non-alcoholic champagne.
Oh, yeah, but it's, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to keep this rolling because this is, after all, a behind-the-scenes look. And then we're going to be bringing up some music. I think Auld Lang Syne, because I've learned from the expert here. Okay, and then photos. I can see photos going over us here, and we roll credits. But here's the thing with the credits. It's going to be this complete list that I read, and after every one, it's going to say Dale Switzer. Okay? And here's how we should end it.
I don't have to edit this thing, do I?
No. I think,
fantastic. I like it better already.
Yeah, Sonia will be editing this. And maybe, we'll talk to it. But we have to end it, I think, with kind of the bookend, the parenthetical close with the ID again. So we have a choice. You can either read it again, not that you need a script, or we can edit in the one from earlier.
We've also got Lou Martin doing the ID.
No, it's going to be Dale Switzer. It's going to be Dale Switzer. You want to do it, or we're going to edit it in. This will be the last moment on this interview.
You've been watching KOAM TV, Pittsburgh, Joplin. There, that's a postlude.
It's a take. Wrap. Well done. That's it. Okay. Now they're going to look back. They're going to discover that none of this was recorded.
Exactly.
And we're going to be doing it all over again.
Pretty much the way it usually goes.
I think it's good. I think it's good.
She forgot to record on that camera. So.
What's that?
She forgot to record on that camera.
Oh, no. I see the red light. And your career here will not be as long as ours, if that is true. That was perfect, Dale.